Shadows over the stars. The galaxy stretched wide, full of endless stars and silent worlds. At the heart of it all ruled the Drax Dominion, an empire so old that no one remembered the first day it began. For thousands of years, they called themselves masters of the stars, and no one dared to challenge them. World after world bowed to their fleets. Species after species were broken under their rule. Their banners of black and silver hung above planets where freedom had been forgotten. The Dominion lived by one law: strength was everything. Weakness was death. The Drax were tall, scaled creatures with burning red eyes, their voices sharp. Like knives, they spoke of honor, but they only believed in power. To them, every race outside their empire was prey, food for their machines, tools for their ships. They enslaved the Orlun, turned the gentle Mir into laborers, and burned the skies of the proud Kalor until nothing remained but ash. Every whisper of rebellion ended in silence, every uprising crushed in fire. The galaxy had no hope, no savior, and no future. Yet among the slaves and the broken there were rumors. They spoke of a species that the Dominion had ignored, forgotten long ago, a species from a small blue world at the edge of the galaxy. The Drax called them humans, and they believed they were too weak, too divided, too primitive to ever matter. So the Dominion left them in their corner of space, unimportant, unseen. But whispers grew louder. Humans had not been silent. Humans had been waiting. In dark taverns on mining worlds, traders told stories of ships that vanished near the Sol system. An entire patrol fleet was said to have entered human space and never returned. Others swore they had seen strange weapons, fire that cut through armor like paper. No one believed the rumors at first, but fear began to grow like smoke after fire. Could it be true? Could the forgotten humans have teeth sharper than anyone knew? No one dared to ask too loudly because the Dominion had ears everywhere. High above the capital world of Draxus, the supreme overlord sat upon his throne of obsidian. His court was filled with generals, admirals, and spies, all of them proud, all of them cruel. When one of his advisors mentioned the growing whispers, the overlord laughed. "Humans, they are nothing. They are dust beneath our claws," he said, his voice echoing across the chamber. The court laughed with him, their sharp teeth glinting under the great fires of the hall. But in the shadows, one old general did not laugh. His eyes narrowed, remembering a battle long ago. He had seen humans once before the Dominion's borders pushed past their world. He remembered the way they fought, not like prey, not like slaves, but like hunters who refused to die. On the edges of the Dominion's control, strange signals began to appear. Silent beacons pulsed in forgotten space, messages that no one could read. Ships went missing, scouts never returned. The Drax told themselves it was pirates or rebels or accidents, but deep inside, the cracks of fear had started. Something was moving in the dark, something the Dominion could not see. On a barren mining world, a slave girl named Eerie looked up at the night sky. Her body was broken from years of work, her spirit chained by fear. But tonight, she whispered a word she had heard in secret. Humans. The sound of it felt dangerous, like a hidden weapon. For the first time in her life, she imagined the Dominion falling, and she smiled, though her chains still bound her hands. Across the galaxy, in the cold of deep space, a massive shadow drifted. It was not like the Dominion's ships full of spikes and cruelty. It was smooth, dark, and quiet, like a predator waiting to strike. On its hull were letters no alien could read, letters carved in silence. They spelled a single word, Terran. Inside, human eyes watched the stars, waiting for the right moment to reveal themselves. The galaxy did not yet know it, but the age of fear was about to change. The Drax Dominion believed they ruled the stars forever, but in the shadows humanity prepared to shatter their reign. The forgotten species, far from the glowing core worlds of the Dominion, Earth turned quietly in the dark. Blue oceans shined. Green lands stretched wide and human cities burned with light. The Drax had not cared for this small world. They thought it weak and unworthy. But in truth, that mistake would cost them everything. For centuries, humans had watched the stars. They listened to whispers of alien wars. They saw signals that crossed the void, and they understood one truth: the galaxy was not safe. While the Dominion crushed others with fear, humanity prepared. With silence beneath Earth's skies, great factories worked in secret. Not factories of greed, but for survival. Ships were built in hidden docks buried under oceans and mountains. Engines were tested in the cold shadows of the moon. Mars became, more than a red desert, it became a forge of war. And in the asteroid belt, humans carved metal into weapons no one had ever seen before. They remembered history. They remembered the endless wars of their own kind. But unlike the Dominion, humans did not worship destruction for its own sake. They studied it. They learned it. They mastered it. Every war, every battle, every mistake taught them how to fight harder, faster, smarter. And now, all of that knowledge waited in silence. Generals sat in underground command centers, their maps filled with star lines. They studied the Dominion's fleets, its movements, its weaknesses. Spies carried stolen data. Traders brought whispers of alien weapons. Humans gathered it all piece by piece. They knew one day the Dominion would notice them, one day the shadow would fall, and when that day came, they would be ready. But humanity was not only preparing weapons, they were preparing themselves. Pilots trained in gravity wells that bent their bodies to breaking. Soldiers trained in endless night, learning to fight without food, without rest, without fear. Children studied languages of species they had never met. Doctors learned alien biology, building medicine not only to heal but to defend. It was not just a fleet, it was an awakening. Deep under the Pacific, a meeting took place. World leaders and admirals gathered in a chamber of steel. Their voices carried no fear, only resolve. "The Dominion thinks we are nothing," one said. "But we are not nothing. We are the storm they forgot to count," another voice answered. "When the time comes, we will not ask for peace, we will not beg for mercy, we will bring the fight to their very throne." The chamber shook with the sound of fists on tables, with the pounding of hearts. The forgotten species had chosen its path. In the darkness of space, the first Terran fleets moved, not to conquer, not to announce themselves, but to vanish. They slid through shadow, silent hunters, their signals hidden. Every move was a test, every mission a lesson. A Dominion scout disappeared, and then another. Admirals on Draxus grew uneasy, but they dismissed it as chance. They had no idea the forgotten species was already inside their stars. On a barren outpost near the edge of Dominion space, Captain Eric of the Drax leaned over. His console. He had received strange readings, energy bursts, shapes moving faster than any known drive. He sent his report to High Command, but the reply was laughter. "Humans? They are animals, Captain. Nothing more," his superior said. But Eric did not laugh, for he had seen the trail of fire where his patrol vanished, and he whispered to himself, "Animals do not fight like this." On Earth, a young pilot named Mara looked out the window of her ship. The stars stretched before her, endless and cold. She tightened her gloves, her heartbeat steady. This was no longer training. This was the beginning. Her fleet drifted in silence, ready to strike when the order came, and though no alien knew it, the fate of the galaxy already trembled in her hands. The Dominion believed humans were forgotten, but humans had not forgotten themselves. They had remembered every scar, every war, every lesson. They had remembered how to survive when all odds were against them. And now, hidden in the shadows, the forgotten species was ready to be remembered by the galaxy. The day was coming when the silence would break. The day was coming when the stars would know their mistake. The Dominion thought they ruled forever. But in the dark, humanity sharpened its blade, and soon the first strike would fall. First contact with fire. The Dominion grew restless. Ships were vanishing near the Sol system. Scouts were not returning. Whispers spread through the fleets. To silence the doubt, the Supreme Overlord ordered a show of force. He sent a fleet of 50 warships, sharp and black, to remind the galaxy who ruled the stars. The fleet burned across the void, their engines leaving trails of light like claws scratching the dark. They carried the Dominion's pride, the weapons that had broken hundreds of worlds. The admiral on board, Cras Valor, stood tall with scaled armor and eyes like blood. To him, this was no battle, only a hunt. Humans are prey, he hissed to his crew, and prey will learn its place. But far beyond his scanners, hidden in the shadows of broken asteroids, human eyes were watching. Mara, the young pilot, sat in her cockpit, her breath steady, her hands firm on the controls. Her squadron floated silently around her, ships cloaked in the void. No one spoke, no one moved. They waited for the signal. Then it came, a single word through the comms. Now. The silence of space, shattered. Human ships ignited like sparks in the dark. Missiles streaked forward, railguns roared. The Dominion fleet staggered, unprepared for prey that bit back with fire. One warship split open, its hull burning as human weapons cut through its armor like glass. Another exploded in a blaze, its crew screaming as they vanished into the void. Admiral Cras roared, his claws smashing against the console. Counterattack, crush them! His ships turned their guns, beams of plasma scorching through the dark. 2 human fighters were torn apart, fire consuming them. But the rest moved like wolves, swift, coordinated, striking from every shadow. Mara dove between 2 Dominion destroyers. Her ship spun, dodging fire, releasing mines that clung to enemy hulls. Explosions ripped through both destroyers, their wreckage spinning out of control. "Target down," she whispered, her voice calm though her heart raced. The Dominion fleet struggled. They had faced rebels, pirates, even other empires, but nothing like this. Humans did not fight to run. They fought to kill. Every move was planned, every shot designed to break. The enemy's pride, Cras finally saw it. The truth. This was no accident, no primitive attack. The humans had been waiting, sharpening their weapons, building an army in silence. And now they struck with precision that shook even the Dominions. "Core." He sent a desperate message to Draxus, his voice heavy with rage and fear. "We have found them. The humans are awake." On Earth, in the command chamber beneath the Pacific, the message was intercepted. Human generals leaned forward, their eyes like steel. "Let them know," one said, "that this is only the beginning." The battle raged for hours, stars lit with fire and wreckage. When it ended, the once proud fleet of 50 ships was nothing but burning debris. Only 3 Dominion vessels managed to escape, fleeing into the void, carrying tales of horror. For the first time in centuries, the predators of the galaxy had tasted fear. Mara floated among the wreckage, her ship scarred but still alive. She looked at the ruins of the Dominion fleet, the pieces drifting like broken bones. She knew this was only the first strike, only the first message. The galaxy would now hear a truth they had long forgotten. Humanity was not weak, not broken, not forgotten. Humanity was fire, and that fire had just been unleashed across enslaved worlds. Whispers spread faster than chains could silence them. The Mir, in their work camps, heard of Dominion ships destroyed. The Orlan whispered of a human fleet that fought like no other. The Kalor survivors lifted their heads for the first time in years. Hope returned, fragile but burning bright. And far above, on the Dominion's throne world, the supreme overlords, laughter finally stopped. For in his clawed hand he held Admiral Cras's message. The humans had revealed themselves. And now, for the first time in his reign, the overlord felt a shadow of doubt creep into his heart. The galaxy would never be the same again. The forgotten species had struck their first blow. And in the silence that followed, the stars themselves seemed to whisper a warning. The humans have returned. The rise of fear news of the battle spread faster than light. Across hidden channels, through smuggler routes and whispered in slave camps, the story grew. The mighty Dominion fleet had been shattered, broken by the forgotten species. For the first time in centuries, people across the galaxy spoke with trembling hope. The Orlun miners carved symbols of fire on the walls of their tunnels. The Mir healers told children of warriors from Earth who fought for freedom. Even the Kalor, nearly wiped from existence, dared to lift their voices again. Everywhere, the same name was whispered. Humans. The Dominion tried to silence the tale. On Draxus, the Overlord's advisors declared it false, a rebel trick, a lie meant to weaken their rule. They burned markets where traders spoke of human ships. They executed slaves who whispered the word. But no fire, no blade, no chain could stop the spreading fear, because it was not only slaves who whispered now, it was soldiers too. In the Maiki, barracks of the Dominion fleets, captains exchanged nervous glances. They had seen the debris of Cras Velor's armada. They had seen Dominion warships torn apart by weapons they could not understand. If humans could do this to 50 ships, what else were they hiding? The supreme overlord roared in fury, his throne hall shaking as his claws scraped the obsidian floor. He demanded answers, demanded obedience, demanded the galaxy bow once more. But his voice, once enough to silence worlds, now trembled against a rising storm, because deep inside, even he could not forget Cras's last words. The humans are awake, far away in the shadows of Earth's command chambers. Humans were not celebrating. They knew the Dominion would not remain blind for long. They knew vengeance was coming. General Reeves stood before a wall of stars, his voice steady as he spoke to the council. The Dominion will come for us. They will come with fire and fury, he said. But this is our chance. We must strike first, not wait for them to bring war to our home. Mara listened from the back of the chamber, her body still sore from the battle. Her eyes burned with determination. She knew he was right. She had seen the Dominion's cruelty. She had felt their hunger for power, and she knew humanity's silence was over. Across the stars, human fleets began to move. Small squadrons slipped into Dominion space, striking at supply lines, freeing prisoners. Each battle was a spark, each victory a fire that lit new hope. The Dominion tried to cover the losses, but too many worlds saw the truth. The galaxy was no longer blind. In the slave camps of Traylan IV, the impossible happened. Human marines stormed the gates, weapons blazing, their armor scarred but unbroken. They cut chains, they shattered cages, they lifted the broken and carried them to waiting ships. For the first time in living memory, slaves tasted freedom. One mere elder fell to his knees, tears in his eyes as he whispered, "The humans have come." The Dominion's grip weakened. Markets that once bowed in silence now traded in secret with human agents. Species once too afraid to resist now dared to fight. The empire of fear was cracking piece by piece. But the Dominion was not finished. The Overlord summoned his High Council, his voice burning with rage. "They think they can defy us," he snarled. "Then we will erase them." He ordered the release of the Black Sun Armada, the Dominion's most feared fleet, ships built with weapons stolen from 100 conquered worlds, engines fueled by the blood of slaves. They had never lost a war, never failed a mission, and now their target was Earth itself. On Earth, the alarms rang. The Council received word of the Black Sun. Armada's movement. The generals stood silent. For a moment, the weight of history pressing on their shoulders. Finally, Reeves spoke, his voice sharp. "Then we answer not with fear, but with fire." Around him, screens lit up with human fleets preparing for war. This was no longer survival. This was vengeance. Mara stood on the deck of the supercarrier Erebus. She looked out at the endless stars, knowing the battle ahead would decide the fate of her people. She whispered to herself, "Let them come." Behind her, thousands of human soldiers prepared, their eyes fierce, their resolve unshaken. They were no longer the forgotten species, they were the storm, and the galaxy was about to feel its wrath. Earth's answer. The Black Sun Armada tore through the void. Its ships were vast, each one the size of a city, their hulls covered in dark plates that drank the starlight. To the galaxy, the Armada was death itself. Where it passed, hope vanished, freedom died, and planets burned. But this time, its course was not toward some helpless colony. Its path led straight to Earth. The Dominion had chosen to end humanity before their flame could spread. They believed they would crush the forgotten species in a single strike. They believed wrong. On the hidden edge of Sol system, human fleets gathered. Ships rose from the oceans, from the deserts, from the frozen poles. Moon bases lit their engines. Mars sent its cruisers, and asteroid fields released their iron beasts. From every hidden dock and secret forge, humanity revealed its power. The silence of centuries was over. Now came Earth's answer. At the heart of the gathering armada floated something greater, A ship so vast it blotted out the stars. It was the Erebus, humanity's first supercarrier. Its hull stretched like a mountain of steel, its shadow falling across entire fleets. It carried not just weapons, but the spirit of Earth itself, on. Its decks walked soldiers, pilots, engineers, and commanders, everyone ready to die. Above them flew banners with a single word. Terran. Mara stood at the command window, her helmet under her arm. Her eyes scanned the fleets waiting for orders. She whispered, "They think they are coming to end us, but we will end them." Behind her, Admiral Reeves gave the signal. The battle to decide the galaxy had begun. When the Black Sun Armada entered Sol, they came like a storm. 50 capital ships, 100 cruisers, and swarms of fighters poured forward. The Overlord himself watched through distant screens, certain he would see Earth fall. But what he saw instead made even his scaled skin grow cold. The Erebus moved. Its engines roared like thunder. Its cannons glowed with light not seen in any Dominion war. And as it rose before the Armada, its sheer size made even the Predators hesitate. Their sensors screamed with alarms. Their crews froze at the sight. For the first time in their lives, they saw a ship that made them feel small. The voice of Admiral Reeves cut across the comms, carried on frequencies the Dominion could not block. "This is Earth," he said, calm and unyielding. "We are not here to survive, we are here to end your reign." The galaxy heard those words. On distant slave worlds, the message was replayed. On smuggler ships, traders wept as they listened. Even in secret Dominion barracks, soldiers turned their heads, wondering if the age of fear was breaking. Then fire lit the void. Human fleets surged forward, their weapons striking with brutal precision. Railguns pierced armor, missiles broke through shields, and drones swarmed like angry wasps. The Erebus unleashed its fury. From its belly poured wave after wave of fighters, faster and sharper than anything the Dominion had faced. Its cannons fired beams that split capital ships in half, tearing through the pride of the Armada. The Dominion roared back. Their plasma storms scorched human cruisers. Their missiles shattered carriers. Entire wings of human fighters were consumed in fire. But the humans did not break. Every loss was answered with greater fury, every wound with sharper claws. The Armada expected prey. But what they faced was a predator far more dangerous than themselves. Mara led her squadron through the chaos, her ship darting between massive cruisers. She locked onto a Dominion dreadnought and unleashed a salvo of missiles. The explosion ripped through its engines, the giant beast drifting helpless in the void. Her voice was steady as she spoke. "Another one down. Keep pushing." The battle burned for hours. The stars around Sol were no longer silent. They were filled with wreckage, fire, and blood. Both sides bled, but the Dominion bled deeper. For every human ship destroyed, 3 Dominion vessels followed. At last the Armada faltered, its proud formation broke, its captains shouted in panic. They had come to erase Earth, but Earth had met them with fire. They could not withstand. One by one their ships fled, limping back into the void, carrying only shame. On the Erebus, the human fleets roared with victory, but Admiral Reeves raised his hand, his face grim. "This is not the end," he said. "They will return. They will come with more, and they will not stop until we finish this war." Mara looked out at the scattered remains of the Armada. She knew he was right. This was not victory. It was the beginning. Earth had answered, and the galaxy had heard. Now, every enslaved world, every broken people, would rise with new hope. And the Dominion, once unshaken, now trembled at the thought of humanity's return. The shattered throne. The Black Sun Armada limped away, broken and scattered, across the galaxy. The shock was felt like a thunderclap. The Dominion, once untouchable, had been defeated, and the slaves who once whispered in shadows now shouted the truth. The humans had fought the Predators and won. On Draxus, the throne world of the Dominion, the supreme overlord raged. His claws tore into the walls of his obsidian hall, sparks flying. As he roared, his generals bowed low, trembling, their eyes avoiding his. Never before had they seen their master afraid, but even his fury could not hide the truth. The Dominion's age of fear was cracking. To the enslaved, humanity was no longer just a rumor. They were a beacon, a fire that could not be extinguished. And to the Dominion, they were no longer prey. They were hunters, hunters who were coming closer. Human fleets did not rest. After Earth's defense, they pushed outward, striking at Dominion strongholds. They freed planets that had forgotten the taste of freedom. On Traylon IV, the Mir raised human banners. On Orlan Prime, miners smashed their chains and sang the name of Earth. Every victory lit another flame, and soon the galaxy was burning with rebellion. Admiral Reeves stood at the war table aboard the Erebus. Holograms of star systems flickered around him. His commanders reported battle after battle. But Reeves was not smiling. "This is not just war," he said, his voice heavy. "This is the collapse of an empire." Mara listened, her heart steady but fierce. She had fought in every battle, seen friends fall, seen enemies crushed. She knew what Reeves meant. The Dominion was not just losing ships, it was losing its throne. The humans did not fight alone. Species once broken by fear now joined them. Kalor warriors flew beside human squadrons. Meyer medics healed Terran soldiers. Even Dominion defectors, tired of endless cruelty, turned their weapons against their masters. It was no longer a human war, it was a galactic uprising. In the Dominion's core, panic spread. Planets that once obeyed now rioted. Governors begged for help. Fleets deserted. The empire that once ruled with iron claws was bleeding from within. And still, the humans pressed forward. Finally, the gates of Draxus itself came into sight. The throne world, the jewel of the Dominion, surrounded by layers of fleets and fortresses. Here the Overlord waited. He believed his capital would stand. He believed no force could reach his throne. But he had believed wrong before. The Erebus led the charge. Human warships poured through the defenses, tearing down fortresses one by one. Kalor fireships crashed into Dominion dreadnoughts, burning with vengeance. Orlun saboteurs disabled stations from within. Everywhere, the Dominion faltered. Everywhere, humanity pressed forward. Mara's squadron cut through the skies above Draxus. Her ship dodged plasma storms, weaving through fire as her cannons burned enemy wings. She heard her comrades' voices crackle over comms, each one filled with determination. They were not just fighting for Earth. They were fighting for every world that had ever been chained. Below, the capital shook. Citizens who had once cheered for the Dominion now screamed in fear. The sky rained with fire. The ground trembled with explosions. The throne itself stood like a mountain of black stone, defiant and proud. But even mountains can fall. The Supreme Overlord stood at his balcony, watching the chaos with burning rage. His empire was crumbling before his eyes, yet he still whispered, "We are eternal." But his words were drowned by the roar of Terran cannons. His throne shook, his halls cracked, his banners burned. The humans had reached the heart of the Dominion. For the first time in its endless reign, the throne world of Draxus was under siege. The galaxy watched, holding its breath. Would the Dominion survive? Or would the forgotten species finally break the chain of fear? The answer lay in fire, in steel, and in the unbroken will of humanity. And as the Erebus positioned itself above the capital, blocking the light of its suns, a shadow fell across the throne. It was the shadow of Earth, and in that moment the Dominion finally understood. Their reign was ending. The throne was about to shatter. The end of Dominion. The skies of Draxus burned. Once they were filled with the proud banners of the Dominion, black and silver against the suns. Now they were filled with wreckage, smoke, and fire. The capital world, the jewel of the predators, was cracking under the weight of war. The Erebus hung above the planet like a mountain of steel. Its cannons thundered, its fighters poured down like a storm. Beneath it, the Dominion's defenses broke piece by piece. The predators who once ruled the stars were now prey themselves. Inside the throne hall, the Supreme Overlord stood alone. His generals had fled. His admirals were dead. His empire lay in ruins. He clutched the arm of his obsidian throne, his eyes blazing with fury. "We are eternal," he whispered again. But the words sounded hollow, because even he could hear the screams outside. Even he could feel the walls shaking. At the gates of the palace, Terran soldiers advanced, their armor scarred, their weapons hot, but their resolve unshaken. With them marched warriors from a dozen freed worlds. Kalor blades dripped with vengeance. Orlan rifles blazed with fire. Together they stormed forward, breaking the chains of centuries with every step. Mara led her squadron through the skies above the capital. Her ship weaved between spires of black stone, cutting down Dominion defenders. She could see the palace in the distance, a dark tower against a burning sky. Her voice came steady over the comms. "End this." The last line of Dominion ships tried to block the Erebus, but humanity did not falter. Railguns tore them apart. Missiles split their hulls. Drones swarmed like fireflies of death. One by one, the defenders fell until only silence remained. For the first time in history, Draxus was defenseless. Terran boots thundered into the throne hall. The overlord raised his claws, his voice echoing, "You think you are different from us? You think you can rule where we ruled?" Admiral Reeves stepped forward, his eyes steady. "We are not here to rule," he said. "We are here to end you." The battle inside the hall was swift but brutal. The overlord fought like a beast, claws tearing, voice roaring. But humanity did not face him alone. Kalor blades pierced his armor. Orlan fire burned his scales. And finally, Terran steel struck his heart. The supreme overlord fell upon his throne, his reign ending in silence. Outside, the news spread like lightning. "The throne is fallen," voices cried. "The Dominion is no more." Slaves dropped their chains. Rebels lifted their weapons in victory. Across the galaxy, fireworks of freedom lit the skies. The predators who ruled the stars were gone. On the Erebus, the crew stood in silence. The war that once seemed impossible was now won. Mara removed her helmet. Her eyes wet with tears she had held back too long, she whispered, "We did it." But Admiral Reeves stood beside her, his face calm but stern. "This is only the beginning," he said, "because now the galaxy must be rebuilt." The humans had not fought for conquest. They had fought for freedom, and now, with the Dominion shattered, they offered a hand to the broken species of the stars. Together, they began to build something new, not an empire of fear, but a coalition of strength, a galaxy no longer ruled by predators, but guided by those who remembered chains, the name of humanity spread across every world, not as prey, not as slaves, but as liberators. They were the fire that ended the darkness. They were the storm that shattered the throne. And from that day on, no one in the galaxy would ever forget them, the Sioux. Dominion had ruled the stars for ages, but in the end it was humanity who shattered their reign.